My main issue with this, and I spoke about in the head-to-head one, was that I went a bunch more mid-range guys or higher level guys that could potentially go into keepers. And that was my way of going, okay, this is how I'm going to build my team value. I'm going to get every little bit out of each player and hoping the majority of them go right. And if they don't, I can trade them out. But I think just having too many of them guys hurt me a little bit. Stefano didn't start how we thought he would. And the thing with him was a little bit of hit and hope, to be honest with you. If we're looking back at it now, we saw that early and we made that decision early to get rid of him, but that was a hit and hope one. You know, if he came out and dominated, we could have traded him in straight away. You know what I mean? So I think it's a bit more of we don't need to take that ridiculous risk from round one with those guys. Just make sure you get good scorers in, and he was not one of those guys. Rocco Berry one's an interesting one. Looking back now and heading in towards next year, I personally wouldn't start with an outside back from a poor team. The reason that I did know that last year, I'm just not going to do it from here on in. If I think about doing it in the preseason next year, get into me and tell me no. My theory with him was that he was going to be a good player. He was showing some improvement the year before, again at the back end of the year, and showed that he was a good defensively, and if Warriors could do okay, that he would come out and score pretty well. Warriors did not do okay, and he didn't get many opportunities to do his thing, which meant he was only getting at a max of 30 a game, and then the odd game he'd get a 6, I think he got a 7 game when I played him, so that really hurt in that one there for sure. So Independence anyone at 350. The theory was with him that he would be young gung and come out in a good team and do a good job. He didn't start terrifically well. There was a period there where he was potentially going to become a keeper. So I'm still happy with that selection from the start. There was a bunch of people looking to trade him in after that first month. So unfortunately for him, as I said previously, I had him on the bench in a bunch of these games and played Rocco Berry, and he was scoring solidly. And then when I decided to move Penasini into the starting side, he scored a 7 for me, for example. I just got a little bit unlucky with those selections as well. So him as a general selection, I was happy with. But shows that it can be very difficult to where you end up after the first 3 to 5 rounds is most likely where you're going to end up throughout the rest of the season, with ups and downs along the way. Just with the way your team's set up, the team value you're building, the trades that you're using, the amount of them, it all plays a big part in showing where you're going to end up. So, all right, trade history. So Stefano out was a tick. Getting in Nanai and Tango was great, but trading out Leo Thompson at 230 or 240, just a mistake. Like, just too cheap. Just don't trade that guy out. Give him a chance to get some minutes. I know the first round he got piss all minutes. And then from there, he was scoring like 30 on. You could kind of play him week to week for a little bit there. And just unfortunately for me, I decided to trade him out instead of guys like Rocco Berry. I think, my theory was that I think Rocco was a bit more of cover, where I had mid cover in Maxi King. So again, just a mistake. I was bringing in so that was being fullback cover, I should say, for Berry. But I suppose the biggest thing early on in the year, if you don't have cover, you can make that trade to get cover, and I just valued that way more than I did making the correct decision, because I would have traded Rocco just at the price rather than Leo at 100k cheap. I could have used that 100k the next week or the week after or something to make a better decision. This one was my worst, I think very close to my worst trade into the year. I was jumping on the fact that he had 3 fairly easy games coming up, and these ended up being 3 games that the Sharks didn't play so well. They got pumped in one of them. He didn't get a lot of ball in one of them, and then the second or third one, he had a try disallowed over the line, so he only averaged like 30 odd for me, only gained a little bit in price, and then he started to lose, which meant I had to get rid of him in round 12, which I didn't like to do. So that trade in wasn't great. Kohler was fine. Jeremiah Nano, you could have ended up holding as well, so just another one where I was jumped the gun. Kobe Hetherington out for Kohler would have been completely fine, just making that one trade, leaving Nanai. He ended up performing better than Talakai over that time. So that was a mistake, and is one that, again, I spoke about at the time. It was like, you could see that it was a clear cash grab. And for me, if he scored like he was, then he would have done exactly the job that I was looking for him to do. But that was me thinking and him having to make sure that he hit a 50 plus average. I think I was looking for a 50 average over that 3 games. And I thought that would be fair. They could get a 70 or 80 in one game. There might be one he gets 30 odd and then a 50 in the other over that 3 to 4 week period. And that just didn't happen. He got 30, 40, 28 or something. Might have got 27 the first game I picked him up, for example. So yeah, when we always speak about don't do cash grabs, it's more the fact that don't chase the points. And if he was playing against harder teams in that 3 weeks, I wouldn't have picked him up. It was because he had 3 easy matchups and he was on absolute tear that he could potentially do it, hopefully, for another 3 weeks. It just didn't happen that way, unfortunately.
Head-to-head team, I've gone for a bit more of the guns and cash cow strategy, and my team a little bit more through the mid-ranges.
Well, there lies our issues already. Guns and cashies always wins, and decided in my team to go a little bit more the mid-range style, and that obviously didn't work out as well. We started the first one at 1700, and then you can see like that overall team was pretty good to start off. Second week we had a really, really good one, so that got us down to 171 overall, and the worst we ended up from there was a 686 in round 7. So it really shows that if you can get that round 1 team correct, that you can do really, really good work. And we're looking at that team again, and we're seeing guns. We're seeing a couple of mid-rangers in Kurt Mann, someone who's a middle forward playing 13 that had a great chance of doing well, which he scored pretty well. He did his job. Jack Bird playing on an edge, and him in the centres. Again, him or Ewan Aiken, either one was going to do pretty solidly without, there was limited risks on those type of guys. If we look at some of the other ones, obviously the cheaper guys is the ones you can get right or wrong. Didn't go with Madison, went with Matt Byrne, who ended up fine in that one. But really, other than that, I'm just going for cheapies. So everyone on the bench was cheapie. Just go 350 or below, and majority of them worked out well. And if they didn't, you could straight swap them for a cheap guy. The one we did miss was Josh King, for example. He was one of the other cheap guys that we could have selected him over Bullymore and potentially a safer role, but we weren't exactly sure at that time. We knew Bullymore had scored well. Josh King had done okay at the Knights, but him in a Storm system in the middle for a guy that's a nut trucker and more of a tackler, for example, that obviously worked out well for those that picked him up. That was probably the main mistake in this team. So from there, Stephen Crichton trading him out in round 6, and Leo Thompson. Leo Thompson was completely fair. Like, he peaked a little bit in price. Stephen Crichton, that was a fair bit early, I would say, for that one. And that's something that you look at and go, okay, well, I'm trading in a Taylor May. Yes, Stephen Crichton lost his goal kick at that point to Cleary, but if I'm trading in a winger from the same team, there's a reason I'm doing that, because he's getting plenty of ball and plenty of attacking stats. Crichton was someone that he was hanging in an alright price around that 500k mark because he'd done really well at the start. I just suppose in our heads was like, well, could he continue doing that? If he had that 20 or 30 like that he'd been having that last week or two, could you hold on and expect him to get a good game or two where he gets 50? And that's exactly what happened. So that, thinking back, we probably could have done a little bit better with that one and just hold on to that. Kohler, you'd say in here that you wouldn't want in the centers, but again, I'd really struggled through that middle to back end, and I lost a bit of team value, which stopped me from getting a gun center. But holding Matt Burton all year turned out to be a great idea. He did score great at the end, but that was that. Teddy, Hines, Dewey, awesome. And that was just the trade-ins at To'o, just didn't work out well. Offhand Gowie was terrific. Dave Fafita in there's perfect. And Sean O'Sullivan, another gun. So really overall we had, I'd say 16 guns. One was fallen, and To'o didn't play so well. And Kohler was, obviously hit and miss, average. He hit 13 in the last round. So really, if we were able to make a few more better decisions through that middle to back end there, we would have been able to develop and build up enough equity in the team to be able to get an extra gun or two in that 17. I think we would have been able to win 1 or 2, maybe 3 more of those head-to-head competitions, and then had our, obviously our 3 to 4 cash outs then. 3 cash outs would have been great and had a really good 18th man, so I wouldn't be struggling week to week in the last few just to get by and have a crack at teams. Constance there the whole time. Obviously, Cookie's the constant. We had Maxi King for the majority of the year. Hunt was there for a long time. Nico Hines there all year. Burton there all year. It's important to have sort of that 7 to 9 players that you just hold for the majority of the year. That round 10 ranker came second overall in round 10 with a 954. So that was pretty spectacular. So heading into round 2, he traded out Amone, just basically off that first round, and thinking that he wasn't going to be too involved and didn't look great. And I think a lot of us kind of mentioned that. He did come into his own a little bit through the middle of the season, but yeah, it didn't work out too well. And bringing in Isaac Tungle there, cheap Penrith outside back, was a bit of a no-brainer. Yeah, I suppose would have been nice to have him in round 1 instead of Amone, but yeah, got onto that early, and that's the best thing. If you think someone's not good enough, you're like, oh, nah, to the eye, not exactly how we want it to be, then jump off as soon as you can.
In round 2, got that score of 859 and moved up to, what was it, about the 450 mark overall, which was good. Getting into round 3, Lockie Ilias, he was starting to annoy him. So yeah, I got 2 rounds out of him and then moved him on. And again, he could have been someone that you could hold for a period of time there and try and milk what you could out of him. Also fine to move on. How cheap he wasn't really it wasn't really annoying us too much in terms of his with that price. Like if he was about 450k, then you'd probably look to move on straight away. But holding or selling was completely fine in this scenario because he could have come out and started playing better. The Rabbitohs had a really, really poor start. If they started well, he would have scored better, like you saw through the middle part of the season. They didn't, and it took a while for them to get going. So this trade was completely fine. Takeaways I'd say from this are making sure that you trade early. Like if you don't pick the right cash cows early, you're trading early to get a good one. Good tick. From there, stick strong with a few of your guns that you select early, but give them 3 weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is. And if you feel like they're underperforming for that stretch of time, then it's okay to move them on to someone that's firing and get on them for a bunch of weeks. It looked like there's a few mid-rangers or like the Jazz Savangas and stuff that jumped on for 4 or 5 weeks and then moved on and got the cash, got the points that you need, and then you can stepping stone to another guy. So I feel like that was a little bit in here. And then obviously just made the correct moves. If someone wasn't doing well, there was someone firing, they picked them up and really were able to jump on them for that time. And then Hastings, for example, jumped on while he was doing really well, got the ankle injury, got rid of him. Josh Jackson, same deal. So made these trades that didn't work out perfectly well. The Josh Jacksons, Tofu Harrises, these kind of things there, but was able to move off quick enough and had the trades available to be able to do it. If you handicap yourself with making some dumb trades across the season, it does stop you from getting to that final team, getting the team value, and getting the correct players that you need that are firing at the correct time.
Yeah, well, they signed him from the Eels saying he's pretty much the next big thing, and he looked like he was going to turn into that and be a real gun this year, and it didn't quite end up going that way.
On reflection, like I mentioned in the previous video, I thought that he was probably just a little bit of a guess. We're basing it off a real small sample size. And just like if he was about that 400k, like rather than that 550 that he was, then 400, 450, then it's a pretty easy bet to have. But I think that middle 500 is just a little bit too expensive in hindsight to go for someone that we had as a little bit of a risk. So he probably was I'd say our worst selection. Would you agree? Apart from him and Violea?
I'd say so. I think a lot of people got sucked into the hype around the player and the media around the player. And we thought, well, he looks like he's probably going to go well, and the media is hyping up that he'll go absolutely insane. Let's just go with the crowd and go safe, and the crowd got it wrong on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Taumalolo out in round 4, Bullimore out in round 4. Yeah, Taumalolo was just one of those sort of mid-range guys bordering on keeper that we were hoping would become a gun, but it's not quite the Jason Taumalolo of yesteryear anymore. His role's a little bit different now in the recent years, and Bullimore just turned to a bit of a trap, really.
I was just looking at these briefly before. It's just these next bunch of trades. You had Taumalolo's like borderline keeper. That worked out okay as that trade out. We had Jai Arrows probably a little bit early. I'm going to say Jeremiah Nanai was definitely early. And then we've got Stephen Crichton there, I think was a little bit early as well. So I'm going to speak about this whole section here. I think we just come around 10, 11, 12, 13, we just were missing. It's like, it would have been nice to have Crichton when he'd get that 50 or so. So that's the other one I wanted to speak about was Taff, and then the Davi Moale one. There were 2 guys I feel like we banked some cash on Nanai and Crichton with these types of trades. Yes, that Taff trade-in allowed us to get Isaiah Papali'i, but maybe there was another way that we could have got those guys, because I think holding Davi all year, you see us early on was sitting with sort of that 2 to 3, 4 guys even that weren't playing. So I think maybe we could have just been a little bit more patient with either trading out those guys or being selective in the cheapies that we brought in. We had a few of those, obviously, Moali. That's what I mean. We end up with having just a few guys just sitting there doing nothing, and that killed our money making as well.
Yes.
We end up missing out on 1 or 2 extra guns. For a team that was obviously situated pretty good in ranked 95, ranked 115, we should have been really building money, and that kind of killed us a little bit, which is just something to think about, just really thinking about those cheapies and when they're a definite good one and when they're one to avoid. I suppose, seeing what happened with, Josh King in round 1, if you did miss out on him, going, okay, looks like he's going to get some good minutes for a while. He should be able to make 100, 150k and score pretty well, pretty comfortably. And that was seeing someone at that like sort of 300 and something price, which wasn't crazy. Whereas we were taking a little bit of a punt on these types of guys, which, something to think about for next year anyway. Yeah, that was that one. But just a quick one on the rankings there. Obviously, sat there for a long time, and then a few of those different trades. I think this is about the point we started trading in a couple of those cheapies. So team value wasn't improving, and we just slowly declined for the rest of the season.
Yeah,